Have you ever experienced a new symptom and immediately thought, oh no, my autoimmune disease is getting worse? Well, maybe you're feeling more achy than usual. You're not sleeping well. Your digestion is off. You're dealing with more fatigue, more brain fog, maybe headaches, or even changes in your weight. And your first instinct is to assume that you're heading towards a flare up. But what if there's something else happening? For women living with autoimmune disease, perimenopause and menopause can create a whole new layer of confusion because many of the symptoms of changing hormones can look an awful lot like the symptoms we've spent years learning to look for. Welcome back to the Health Bridge podcast. I'm your host, Holly B. I'm a holistic health guide, lupus warrior in remission, and someone who spent more than 20 years learning that healing isn't just about changing the body or fixing symptoms. It's about changing the relationship we have with our body, our diagnosis, and with ourselves. Because I believe that healing begins when we stop fighting our body and we learn to partner with it instead. And I think this conversation is such an important part of that partnership because when you've lived with chronic illness, you've often had to become incredibly aware of your body. You've learned to pay attention to symptoms, notice patterns, and recognize when something feels different. But then your body enters another major transition, and suddenly you may have to learn how to interpret those signals all over again. Today, I'm joined by Cindy Dupuie. Cindy is a functional medicine nutritionist who has spent decades helping people who are tired of feeling sick and tired understand the bigger picture of their health. Her work focuses heavily on digestion, hormones, and helping women navigate the often confusing transition through perimenopause and menopause. Cindy brings her own personal experience to this work. Her journey into functional medicine began after her own body changed dramatically in her 40s, when stress, early menopause, and significant digestive issues collided and led her to begin looking at health through a completely different lens. Today, we're talking about the connection between hormones, digestion, inflammation, and autoimmunity, and what women need to understand when the body they worked so hard to understand starts changing again. So be sure to listen all the way to the end because we're answering the question, how do you know if your symptoms are coming from your autoimmune condition, your changing hormones, or something else? And how can you learn to respond without immediately assuming your body is failing you? Cindy Dupuie, welcome to the podcast. I'm looking forward to our discussion today.
Me too. Thank you so much for having me. Yeah.
Absolutely. We're both roasting down here in Southern California in our little room. So we look a little shiny on screen. That's why.
Yes, we don't have a whole lot of clothes on either. That's
Exactly.
why.
More reason to watch on YouTube.
There you go. You are so funny.
So, Cindy, you've been working in nutrition and functional medicine and hormones for many years. And you've also had your own experience with your body changing in midlife. Could you share a little bit about your story, what happened, and kind of how that shaped how you work with your clients today?
Sure. So, and I'll kind of start at the beginning. I got my degree in dietetics and food administration long time ago. Did nothing with it. I had a family, kids. I was working for my then husband in the youth car business. So that was a little bit of a departure. And when I was 43, I was going through a divorce and I kind of threw myself into perimenopause. I think it was a combination of things, combination of the stress, probably cortisol, adrenals. I lost too much weight. I think that was probably the biggest reason. And when we lose too much weight, our body's going to say, hey, you know what? I don't have enough cholesterol. I don't have enough fat to make the sex hormones. I need to sequester those for something else. And that's exactly what my body did. So I was menstruating 1 month and then the next month I wasn't. I was like, oh, what happened here? And, I didn't think a whole lot about it because there were so many other things going on. And, every woman experiences perimenopause in a different way. It can be, over a period of 10 years, it can be a really fast thing. And symptoms and how she feels is very different. It differs. So, yeah, I went from one day to the next day, and then I was just going through my life. But I think the biggest thing that started to happen, and here again, I think it was a combination of a lot of different things coming together, is my gut, my digestive system just rebelled. And again, I think it was a combination of cortisol because cortisol can affect stomach acid. I think and also motility, stress, motility of the digestive system. There was estrogen affects our digestive system as well. It can affect stomach acid. It can also affect motility. Can also affect bile production, which is really important as far as digestion and detoxification. So there's a lot of different things going on, and I had no idea that so much could be coming into play here. And I found functional medicine when I was wanting to get back into, it's like I'm thinking, what the heck am I going to do, right, with my life? And I happened to go to a lecture, a nutritionist locally, and she held up Dr. Mark Hyman's book, The Ultra Metabolism. And, this is over 20 years ago and 25 years ago. And I went, I think I need to get that book. So I did, and I started to read it, and I went, oh my gosh, this just so speaks to me. And then I found the Institute of Functional Medicine via Mark Hyman, via the book, and went to their training that was out here in Pasadena, California. And I said, I found my tribe. So that's how I got into functional medicine. And so my focus was on helping anyone who was basically sick and tired of feeling sick and tired, basically, was helping people who were looking for something outside of just Western medicine because they weren't getting healed. And of course, the digestive system was one of my areas of focus. And, digestion is very far reaching. So fast forward to about 6 years ago, I was looking at my clients and going, we're losing some ground here. And but yet I know how they eat, I know their lifestyle, I know how they're exercising, and that's all pretty dialed in. So why are we getting osteoporosis? Why are we getting some insulin resistance? Why is A1C going up? And I'm going, I'm kind of missing a piece here. And then I was also looking at my contemporaries, and I'm 68 and I've been on HRT for about 18 years now. I got really lucky because I happened to go to a doctor when I was 50. I didn't know about HRT at all, and she put me on a fairly low dose. And even at a low dose, it was helpful because I wasn't, you know, being debilitated by pain. My weight was still okay. I was still functioning pretty well. My digestive system improved. So I was on the right track. So I was looking at my contemporaries and saying, there's a difference here. And I do think it has to do with HRT, and I am a proponent of it. And it is a very personal decision for every single woman, and it's not the end all be all by any stretch of the imagination. But I do think women thrive better and the vitality is better. And I don't like to use the word longevity, but just the quality of life. And I think that's what we're looking for here. So that's kind of how I got into the hormone space. And I'm sure in your audience, I mean, there's so much information around hormones, HRT, perimenopause, what we should do, what we shouldn't do, what kind. And there are hormone wars, and there is wars between doctors. And it's like, oh my gosh, you guys, it's really hard to watch, actually. Just how stuck everyone can get. And I get some of it, but I'm a little surprised sometimes and a little disheartened. And, I've done a lot of research, so I can kind of pick and choose who I want to follow, what makes sense to me. So when something comes up, I can go, well, maybe yes, maybe no, but the average person can't. So it's a really hard place to be in. And when a woman's trying to get answers and she's not getting answers from her doctors because our doctors are not trained. Since the WHI study, which is right about when I went into menopause, that was in 2002. That's when the results came out where HRT causes cancer.
And for those just listening and not
Mhm.
watching, that was put in quotes
Oh, putting
and
air
quotes.
quotes
Yeah,
around causing thank you,
yeah.
causing cancer. It doesn't. The deal, a couple different things here. I mean, there's a lot of things about the WHI which wasn't perfect by any stretch of the imagination. But even with the information that they do have from the WHI study, they have gone back over the last 2 decades. And they have backpedaled a lot of what they did say at that particular time. And that was using non-bioidentical hormones. We don't even use the hormones that they were using in the study now. So that's one thing. And the other thing, it's the progestins, that was the type of progesterone that they were using in the study. Most commonly, not all the time, unfortunately, but most commonly in HRT now, we do use a micronized progesterone or in the form of Prometrium or a transdermal. So it's bioidentical, whereas it wasn't, in the study that they were doing. And it was only in the progestin and estrogen arm that there was just a tiny uptick in increased cancer. So it was basically statistically insignificant. But, back then, not that it has really changed that much, but the media got a hold of this. And before it was even necessarily peer reviewed and put out there to the doctors, it got out to the public. And that's how the doctors found out too. And of course, the doctors were concerned. Of course, women were concerned. So all of a sudden, all these women went off of their HRT, and all of a sudden, hormone replacement therapy was thought of as the big evil thing in the room. And doctors were not being talked about perimenopause and menopause. And what's brought it to the forefront is that all these ones that are established on Instagram and are they've been in menopause for probably about 5 years, and it wasn't until they reached it that where they kind of went, excuse me. So they've brought light to all this, which is a very good thing. It's a very, very good thing. So yeah, I used to ask the cursory question on my intake form: have you lost your libido, or has your libido declined? And if my client, and that was really my own question. And and if my client said yes, and I would say, well, does that matter to you? And to some women, it doesn't. Either they're not in a relationship or their partner is no longer interested either. And probably because his testosterone is too low, which is an issue. But so I would just leave it at that. And then I got a little bit wiser and that it really does matter. It really does matter. So that's kind of how I got to taking care of women.
There's, it's such an interesting shift with, let's say just a standard, standard healthy woman who hasn't been in the autoimmune spectrum, right?
Mhm.
They're going along. All of a sudden, they hit their
Mhm.
40s, things start shifting. It's like, what the heck? Like, I thought I had my diet handled. I thought I had my exercise handled and all of those
Yeah.
things. And it's kind of a shock.
It is a shock and it is discouraging. So I think it's good to understand what is going on in your body and how our hormones can affect our immune system. I think it's really important to understand that. And most women who are in the autoimmune sphere and probably listening to you, right? They're not just depending on Western medicine. They've done their own research. They've probably made, like a lot of shifts to their diets, to their lifestyle, all of that. So they already have done all of that. When we start moving to perimenopause, we have the players, right? I mean, testosterone is kind of the underlying thing for most women. For some women, testosterone is more important, but I would say majority of the women, that's kind of an underlying steady thing for the most part. But the estrogen and progesterone are starting to go up and down, and depending on the woman, it's stopping and sputtering, and our bodies are going, what the heck are we doing here? So often what we lose first is progesterone. Our bodies aren't making adequate amounts of progesterone because we're not having a really good ovulatory time when the corpus luteum is fully developed, and once we ovulate, then it produces progesterone. So if it isn't, a really strong ovulatory time, sometimes we don't ovulate during perimenopause, we won't have the progesterone. So some of the roles of progesterone is it's very anti-inflammatory. And, if you think about it, it's the highest when we are pregnant. There's also a certain type of estrogen when it's the highest, and that's when we're pregnant. That's called estriol. And estriol is the weakest form of our estrogen, but it's the most abundant when we're pregnant. Now, both of those calms the immune system down. So we're not rejecting the fetus. It totally makes sense, right? Right. So usually during pregnancy, if you do have an autoimmune, usually that kind of calms down. I wouldn't say necessarily goes into remission, but a woman will find that she's in a better place during pregnancy. So, apply that to when we're in perimenopause and in menopause as well. So as that progesterone goes down, a woman can find that you know, all of a sudden it's starting to rear its ugly head. And if she's never had autoimmune issues before, it can rear its head for the very first time because the immune system is just not being regulated in the same way and being calmed in the same way. Progesterone also has a role in that conversion of T4, our thyroid, right? Our inactive thyroid hormone T4 to our active form, which is T3. So it plays a role in that conversion. I mean, there's other things that we have to have for that conversion, other nutrients, but progesterone is a part of that. So, you might have your Hashimoto's you know, going along, doing just fine. And maybe your autoimmune markers are down. You're testing that, on a regular basis because that is part of managing that. And all of a sudden it goes up and you're going, what the heck? And again, it could be because the progesterone has gone low. So that's one piece. Another piece is that as estrogen starts to plummet as well, and it's all over the place too, more so usually than progesterone. Estrogen, I think it's really important that we understand all of the roles that estrogen plays in our body, because unless we understand these roles, I think it's difficult to put things in perspective and to really know how to advocate for ourselves and why we're saying what we're saying.
Hey, I just wanted to jump in here and interrupt the program for just a hot minute. You know that I'm so passionate about this podcast, but what I'm also really passionate about is helping women with lupus minimize their symptoms, boost their energy so that they can indulge in life again. So if you are a woman who is struggling with lupus, who is sick and tired of being sick and tired, who's struggling to manage your flares, if you're finding that your lupus symptoms are just really getting in the way of you being able to live your life the way you want to, I feel you. I've been there myself and I felt the same way. And what I've found is that there are a certain set of health fundamentals that once applied, will support you in your foundational health. They will support you in building and maintaining that energy, minimizing flares, and allowing you to, again, indulge in life and follow your passions. So, if that is something that you are interested in creating for yourself, let's jump on a call together. I will walk you through the process that I use with my clients to get them from sick and tired to strong foundation of health by implementing my Health Bridge protocol. If this is something you're interested in chatting more about, I would love to talk to you. Apply for a free clarity call with me, and I look forward to getting to know you soon. And now back to the episode.
So, when we go to the doctors, often we're one of the doctors when it comes to perimenopause and menopause because we're having hot flashes, we can't sleep. Maybe our joints are more achy, our cholesterol's gone up. Maybe we're losing word recall. We're just not feeling great. Maybe we're feeling more fatigued. So these are all the things kind of on the surface, and they're important to quality of life. But then we have all these other things that are going on below the surface. And yes, it's more when we really gone into menopause, when we're really not making the estradiol at all. And that would be is we need estradiol to support our bones to prevent osteoporosis. We need our estradiol in order to produce nitric oxide. So our vasodilation is working, right? So our blood pressure isn't going up. We need it for heart to prevent cardiovascular disease. Cardiovascular disease is the number one killer in postmenopausal women, not cancer. And I think a lot of women are surprised with that because we are much more frightened about cancer, I think, than we are about a stroke or a heart attack, but that's there. And I know there's some controversy about estrogen and progesterone in relationship to Alzheimer's and dementia. But I think in the next 3 to 5 years, some of that controversy is going to shift. And I do think it does play a role in keeping our brains working the way it's supposed to be working. I do. Um, so and estrogen also has to do with mitochondrial function, and that's the powerhouse of all of our cells for our brains and everything else, right? Vagus nerve, all of that. So if you start thinking about all the roles that estradiol has, and it reduces, oh, I didn't even mention, it reduces inflammation. Okay, estradiol does specifically. It helps with insulin sensitivity, with metabolic health, lowering cholesterol. So, I mean, I'm listing all these things. I made a PDF of all the things that happen when we lose our hormones and all of the medications that go up that correspond, right? And I find that if a woman is not on HRT, there's a good chance that by the time she's 65, she's going to be on 3 different medications. And that's where this polypharmacy really starts going. So let me pause here and go back to autoimmune and estrogen. Okay. So you heard me say that estrogen can reduce inflammation. It does. And so we think about immune disease, right? We think of inflammation. I didn't include in there that estrogen also plays a huge role on how our digestive system works as well. And I think your audience probably understands how a digestive system that's working properly and working well affects the immune system. So if we have a leaky gut or if we have SIBO, we have any of those things, that's the source of inflammation. And that's going to drive, right? Possibly the autoimmune markers and everything going up right then. So yes, I would say perimenopause is a hard period for a lot of women that have autoimmune disease and they need to be supported, and Western medicine does not know how to support them. And I think, and your audience may already know this, how important it is to do really, really good lab work. So you know where your normals are. And I would say, mid 30s, late 30s at the outside, you need to have all these tests done, all these panels done, and then you need to, test them every 2 or 3 years or more often if you notice changes to see where your normal is. Because, I talk about to my clients, on the lab report, they have normal ranges. And again, I guess I am in quotes, normal ranges. And, you know, and then the functional medicine world, integrative world has optimal ranges, but you have your ranges. And, you know, I know my thyroid ranges are not optimal. They never have been, but I do okay here. All right. Although they did shift in this last year, and I went, huh. And I was actually feeling it in different ways. And I was able to get my doctor, because even though they were in normal ranges, right? And she didn't really have a history of my lab work, unfortunately, to see where my normal was. But anyway, I was talking to her and I said, I know my thyroid is within normal ranges here, but I know they are not within normal ranges of my normal. So can we do this, this, and this? She agreed to do it. She hesitated first. She wasn't going to do my immune markers. And then we were talking some more, not specifically about thyroid, but her brain must have been going on. And she says, okay, I'll do it. About 5 minutes later. And I went, yes. So we need to know where our normal is, whatever that is on our iron, on our white blood cell count, everywhere. We need to know that so we know how to advocate for ourselves and get what we need. So we're not being nasty. We're not just, we're going, wait a minute, this isn't normal for me. Something shifted. And then often we're symptomatic too. And I actually was. There was a shift in me. Um, and I'm still working on it. You know, I'm getting there. I'm getting there, but there's no way any doctor would have addressed it.
Yeah, and that goes to the importance of just being aware of your own self, your own body, and
Yes.
really tuning into that intuition. And I think,
Yes.
that's a journey in itself.
Yes.
Um, a lot of times, I think when women start in the autoimmune world, it's like, shut down. Like, I can't take this. I'm not going to overthink this. Just do what the doctor says, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Eventually we get to the point where we're like, this isn't really working.
Mm-hmm.
Or
Mm-hmm.
maybe it's helping, right? It might
Mm-hmm.
be helping, but it's not getting me to where I feel like I should be or could get to. So
Mm-hmm.
then we have to start tuning in and becoming more aware and paying more attention. And that's a lot of what I talk about on this podcast. Um, what I'm really interested in just pointing out again is that space where we've had the autoimmune symptoms, we know our normal's there, and then perimenopause comes in and we start feeling more achy. We're not sleeping as well. The gut
Mm-hmm.
motility maybe has shifted.
Mm-hmm.
And my first thought for myself was, oh man, like my autoimmune is kicking in. I don't know, I don't understand why. Like,
Mm.
so I was expecting my autoimmune blood work to look much worse the next time I tested.
Okay.
Surprise, it didn't.
Okay.
It looked exactly the same. So then I'm
Okay.
like, okay, so let me think about what else could be going on. Could this be
Okay.
my hormones?
Ah,
And I think
good.
that there's a lot of women that might be in that space but haven't figured out that there's that connection there. And so I guess my question is, how do you help your clients start realizing where these symptoms are coming from? Are they actually autoimmune or are they just appearing as autoimmune? How do we track down if it's actually just a hormonal imbalance and if we shift that, then the autoimmune symptoms can maybe clear up?
Really good question. And, bringing this up, okay. This kind of puts it a little bit differently, right? So yes, there's a mimicking of, let's say, there's many different types of autoimmune, right? But the achiness or even the thyroid can mimic definitely perimenopause and menopause. So how do you know the difference? One, you just spoke to. You had your blood work done, right? You looked at your immune markers and they were still pretty darn good. Okay, so that's not being activated, right? You look at your vitamin D levels, obviously, right? That's part of modulating your immune system. So, and you look at your inflammatory markers, you look at your ferritin, you look at all of those, obviously. And then if those are looking pretty good, then we're going to go to, okay, I think it's more of a hormonal thing. And then what do you do, right? And in perimenopause, and again, it depends on the woman. For some women, they are just so all over the place, right? And that's where I think I'm just going to put this out there because it might help some people. There is a kit, and it's called Mira, I believe, and it's was mainly used in the past for women who were trying to get pregnant. So just to track their hormones and know exactly where they're at. Well, some women are doing that now during perimenopause. And okay, so they pee on a stick and they can see where their hormones are. And, you know, which if you're going to test your hormones during perimenopause, that's really the only way I would test estrogen and progesterone because it can change from hour to hour, from day to day. I mean, in big swings. So you're not going to get anything accurate in blood. You really aren't. So you have to go more on symptoms. And again, I would say that it's progesterone that drops first in most women. So, if it comes to sleep, and a lot of women do have a hard time with sleep as progesterone goes away because it has a calming effect and it works on our GABA receptors. And that can help with sleep, that can help with anxiety. So if that starts to wane, especially in the last part of our cycle, a woman can really have a hard time sleeping, and that's going to affect her, how she feels, right? And inflammation and everything else. She's just not recovering. So if you think that might be going on, you can do one or two things, right? You can buy good progesterone cream over the counter. You can do that. It's not really going to help with sleep in most women. You need to do the oral. So that one you would have to have prescription for. And the reason why you need to do the oral is because the oral passes through the hepatic, the liver, and is turned mainly into pregnenolone, which calms everything down, which can help women with sleep. All right. The cream doesn't do that much. The cream can help in a lot of other ways, but if you're having issues with sleep, I would go to my doctor and ask for progesterone and, maybe start, I think that comes in 100 and 200 milligrams. And do not start at 200. You can overdo progesterone too, and it can make you bloated. It can make you insulin resistant. So I've seen some women come in and it's like, you're on what? Like 300 milligrams, like what? And they're having other problems too. So maybe 100 milligrams and maybe only certain times during your cycle. And, maybe you want to get one or two mirror kits to kind of track where your hormones all are and how you're feeling. So then you can relate. Do I need help here when I feel this way? Do I need more estrogen and do I need more progesterone? You play with it a little bit. So you get to know your body a little bit better. So, yeah, you might want to start on progesterone. And then, I named all the things that estrogen helps with digestion. I mean, if you have digestive issues, more than likely, as you're starting to lose your estrogen, it's going to affect your digestive system. So know that you're probably going to have to amp up on that for a little bit and, get with somebody who knows what they're doing. And, I'll give you a little snippet just because I think it can be helpful to a lot of you women. So autoimmune, you probably know a lot about the digestive system.
Really quick, Holly B here. I just wanted to interrupt the podcast to ask you for a quick favor. Can you take just a moment to like and subscribe to this podcast on whatever platform you are listening in on? It makes a world of a difference. And the reach of this podcast, it takes like literally under 10 seconds. So go do that right now. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And now back to the episode.
A lot of women do. And, you know, okay. So your minerals that are needed for that T4 to T3, I'm going to go thyroid here for a minute, but it is associated with your digestive system. The minerals that you need in order to convert that T4 to T3 is you got zinc, you got selenium, you got vitamin A, you have iron, basically. All right. All those minerals have to be available to you. And that usually happens in the stomach. Okay. The stomach acid breaks that apart and makes it available for your body to further digest and then absorb. Now you can have more problems down, right? The digestive system. But if you don't have enough stomach acid up here, that's going to be difficult for your body to have available. And estrogen can affect some women when it comes to stomach acid. It can also affect women if the cortisol is high, it can affect their stomach acid. So we need to possibly have more support there. Not all women do, okay? But so I just want you to be aware of that. And then we can have motility issues, right? And does that affect SIBO? Does that affect constipation? Does that affect, inflammation, irritability within the small intestine and even the large intestine? Yeah, it can all be affected by that. So if you find that your motility starts to go down, you become more sensitive to foods. Oh my gosh, I see women that come in and it's like they've taken so much out of their diet and they're existing on maybe 5 to 10 foods and that's it. Well, they're becoming malnutrition, okay, malnutrient. And then the problem is not the food, it's that your body probably have a leaky gut, right? So the junctions, those tight junctions, estrogen, we think of estrogen, think of collagen, right? So what are your tissues made of? What are those the sphincters throughout, your whole digestive area? That's collagen. So you think about the sphincter between the stomach and the esophagus. Sometimes that relaxes when we go into menopause again, and estrogen can help with that. So it's far reaching. And I want to mention this because this is something that made a big difference for me and has made difference for some of my clients. And that is bile plays a huge role in motility, in fat digestion and absorption, in sterilizing our food, in gallbladder health, in detoxification. All of that is really important. Now, it's made in our liver and it's stored in our gallbladder. How many women, postmenopausal women, have had the gallbladder out? A lot. And that's when they have it out. That's because that bile gets sticky or it's just not moving as well. So there's a fairly large percentage of people, I'm one of them, who have a gene SNP. So it's just something that, you've got. There's really nothing you can do about it. That plays a role in your body's ability to make choline and then make the phosphatidylcholine, which is the backbone of your bile. So I've always had a little bit of a problem with constipation, all right? And I got it going along pretty well. And even before I went on to HRT, it was moving along pretty well. I was about 80%. And then all of a sudden, I was getting cracks, deep cracks around my tips of my fingers. It was painful. Like, okay, you guys, I can't do the dishes. So that was, oh shucks, you guys have to take over, but it was painful. And then my heels were really cracking and bleeding to that point. And if you go in the water sometimes, salt water, and you've just shaven, it can be a little stingy. Well, I quit shaving before I went in the water because it stung so much that it hurt. And I thought, could this be thyroid? Because skin and all of that. So I tested my thyroid. No, that was good. And do you know who Dr. Ben Lynch is? Have you ever heard of him?
No.
He is a guru in genetics and he actually has a supplement line and he's written the book Dirty Genes. He does have a genetics test. And I happened to see him on Instagram. And again, this was probably 10 years ago. And he had a post about his product. Now it's called Bionutrients. And I was listening to it and I went, oh my gosh, this sounds just like me. And so I ordered it. And I also had done genetics years ago, didn't know exactly what to do with it. But he was specific on which genetic SNP pertains to this, and it's called the PEMT gene SNP. I looked it up. Sure enough, I have two of those. I have a homozygous. All right. So that when I went into menopause, it did affect my digestive system. It was that, you have that layering effect. Once I started taking the supplement, it made a huge difference. It will always be in my stack, even though I'm taking more estrogen now than I was back then. I need this. My body just needs it. And I think it's a missing piece for a lot of women. I forget what the percentage was who have one or two of these SNPs. It's a pretty big percentage. I was surprised. And you can kind of tease that out looking at family history and that, okay, my mom had her gallbladder out. Mhm. I have some family members that maybe had a difficult time with dry skin and dandruff. I didn't, but that could be absorption of fat soluble vitamins, right? And I know some people in my family would, after a fatty meal, they would have to run to the bathroom. That wasn't me, but there was enough, stuff to point that we have issues with bile and gallbladder. So even if you don't have your genetics done yet in front of you, those are some clues for you. So, the aches and pains could come from that, because you have that inflammation, it's going to do all that. So as you're moving through that, if your digestive system kind of goes haywire, look at that. We already talked about the labs that you want to do. Um, getting estrogen when you're still in perimenopause, some doctors are becoming better at doing that. And you probably want to start off with a really low dose and just see if that helps you. And I like to remind women of this because we've been so scared, right? About hormones. I mean, the black box just came off and it should never been on there, but it just came off. And so I run into women every woman actually, um, who are really afraid to play with their hormones. Okay. So it's like if you're given the lowest dose, start there. And then if you feel like, hey, maybe I want to try a little something different, you can go up, you can go down. The half-life of estradiol and progesterone is, I don't know, 8 to 12 hours. So it's going to go back down. And, if you're in menopause, maybe not perimenopause, because your body's still ovulating, your body is still producing estradiol. But if you're in menopause, even if you're given, higher doses of transdermal or injection or whatever, it's still a lot less than the estrogen that was circulating in your body when you were ovulating, when you're in your fertile years. So I don't think you necessarily have to be so afraid of it. If you want to be cautious at first, that's fine. And I get it because it's like, I don't know what our body's doing. But you can play. And, some women are really sensitive to progesterone. If I could do without progesterone, I would probably do without progesterone, even though there's some benefits. Progesterone also benefits bone too. I can't do oral progesterone. My digestive system doesn't like it. That's what rebels on me, and I've tried it many different times. So I do the transdermal cream, which some doctors say it doesn't protect your uterine lining. I haven't found that to be a case in me and many other clients that I have. So I do have my women do an ultrasound every so often to make sure they are being protected. Where was I going with this? Oh, okay. So some women may have problems with oral or even cream, transdermal progesterone, and I'll tell them. So they'll stop everything. It's like, okay, HRT isn't for me. Like, no, 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 no. Just cut out the progesterone for 2, 3 weeks. Just do the estradiol. See how you feel. So then that, hey, I really like that estradiol. Okay. And we have to finesse the progesterone. So don't throw the baby out with the bathwater when it comes to HRT. And it can take a while sometimes to get what is right for you. And, I've been experimenting a lot in the last 3 to 4 years, partially because I'm hacking it. So I know what it feels like for other women using other methods. So I just went to a patch. I had to go through mainstream medicine to do that. I had to fight for it. It was all good. It was all good lessons. And I don't know if this is true. I'm going to go back to it. I mean, I don't understand if, in fact, it caused a lot of bloating in me. I don't know why. It was a patch. I don't know why it would do it. I haven't investigated it. But when I put that patch on, I was so bloated. And I'm like, what the heck is going on here? And I went off the patch, went back to my creams. I went, oh, but I am going to go back on the patch because I want to see what's going to happen again. And And I'm kind of going off here. If you want to interrupt me, you can, but I'm just kind of giving people, you can raise your hand and I'll stop.
Uh-huh. Keep going.
Okay. So I just want to let women know that it's a little bit of a journey. Okay. So when I went on this patch, most patches, not most, but yeah, I would say most patches, you change it out every 3 days or so. Okay. Some women absorb it better on your abdomen. Some women absorb it better on your little tush. It depends on the person. Some women don't absorb very well at all. I was giving a fairly big patch because it's for a whole week. And I put it on and I'm going, okay. And then towards the end of the week, I'm going, hmm, I don't think this is working for me at the end of the week. And I teach hot yoga. I'm in the yoga room, and a couple times, like water would kind of get in there, and I'm going, okay. So what I did is I asked my doctor to test it. He writes back, okay, but I'm not going to raise your dose if it's low. It's like, okay, I'm just asking. I'm just asking. Let's just see where it's at. And there's two different types of tests, one that's a lot more sensitive than the other. So, of course, he did the one that wasn't as sensitive, but it was below 30. Okay. It doesn't track anything below 30. Who knows where it was? You do not want to be below 30. I am happiest between 100 and 120. That's where my body is happiest, when my blood markers are right around there. So I wasn't surprised. Like, okay, I did on the last day. It's low. I know my body, so I suspected it. And then I thought, let's see where it is on the second day of the patch. Because I was going to go back in. I wanted to test a couple of things. I ordered the test myself. And that's a really wonderful thing about the US is we can order tests ourselves, which is great at cash prices. So I did, went in. My levels were at 170. That's too high for me. So in a week's time, I was going do, 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 do. And so I did ask him, okay, for a twice a week patch. And he did it for me. So what I'm trying to say is we need to hack it ourselves. You probably need someone in your corner to help you do that because it's really hard to know what to ask for. What are the signs? What are the things to look for? And how to proceed. So, a one size does not fit all, and don't again throw the baby out with the bathwater. So that was a lot. Okay, I'm going to be quiet.
Well, you're bringing up a point that I wanted to ask you about, which is how does a woman navigate this conversation? Because
Yeah.
you go to the medical doctor, you want to use your health insurance first, right? So you go to your medical
Yeah.
doctor.
Hmm.
How do we start that conversation? I know in my case, I have to get referred out to they just go to the OBGYN. So I go to the OBGYN, say, you know, I know I'm perimenopausal. I'd like to get my, some hormones checked and just try to see where I'm at. I'm not well schooled in the hormone testing and what to ask for. So they just give me kind of the standard test. Oh, you need to take it on this day of your cycle. Well, my cycle's all over the place, so
Right.
finding that day is really difficult. And then I get the results back and, um, she says, "Well, I have good news and bad news." Like, "Okay." And the good news was about something else. The bad news, she leans in really close, pats me on the shoulder and says, "You're in menopause." So I was like, "Well, I know, that's why I'm here."
No,
I'm
it's like,
I know I'm in perimenopause. I'm not actually in menopause. But
okay.
she said, "Well, we'll just put you on some estrogen birth control pills." And I was like, "No, that's not."
Okay.
Yeah. So where would somebody go from there? Obviously, we need to step outside of the structured Western medicine box, I think, to find the more nuanced stuff because as you mentioned, the medical doctors, the Western doctors aren't really well versed and aren't really taught
No, they aren't.
about this. So,
No, they aren't. And you would think that the OBGYNs or the endocrinologists, but none of them are. No. them are, and the PCPs are just kind of passing them off. And poor OBGYNs, it's like they're like, I just want to deliver babies, you know?
Right.
Um,
I found that the OBGYNs are much more well versed when it comes to I'm trying to get pregnant and can't figure out
yes,
how, and then they know how to
yes,
test hormones that way.
yes.
But when you come to the other end of the spectrum with the perimenopause, menopause, that's like a whole different world.
Yes. And, the easiest thing to do would be to reach for a birth control pill for a woman because it's basically shutting everything down. And I don't know if women realize that. We're shutting down the ovulation, we're shutting down the production of estrogen and progesterone, right? We're shutting it all down. And that bleed that you have is a chemical bleed. All it is a withdrawal bleed of those particular types of substances. And there's a lot of problems with that. I mean, it's throwing your body totally off. It's not going through the progression it needs to go through, number one. Number two, you are putting in progestins and you're also putting in non-bioidentical estradiol, and that's not something that you want to do. Now, if you are being debilitated by perimenopause, that might be the thing for you to do on a short term. Okay. I'm just putting that one out there. We don't always shut things all the way down, but obviously your doctor doesn't know what to do in perimenopause. That's the hardest. That's the hardest period for doctors to try to do. And even if they're trained, it's still hard. So what do you do? Okay. Do you sleep okay, or is sleep an issue for you?
Lately it's been more of an issue. Waking
Okay.
up around 2 a.m. and struggling to get back to sleep because I'm physically uncomfortable
Okay.
or I have
Okay.
headaches. Yeah.
Okay.
Mhm.
You know, um, this is why there are online businesses,
Yeah.
right? Like MIDI and Alloy and all of that. And to be honest with you, I haven't really explored the perimenopausal, how they respond to the perimenopausal woman. I know how they respond to the menopausal, and it will be out of pocket. It will be. And I don't know if they do, they probably just do the patch and gel and the prometrium for progesterone, because those would be, I don't know that for a fact. I don't know if they prescribe uh, transdermal creams as well. Those have to be compounded. Whether or not you can get your insurance to cover that, you won't the compounded creams, but the patches and the prometrium, you might be able to. So if you're not able to get a doctor to help you, then you might want to go to one of those organizations online. It's easy to do. And, just kind of come to the conclusion that that's maybe how you need to go for the next year or two until you're in menopause. And maybe your doctor can help you and you can talk about it a little bit more. So that's one route. You can get progesterone cream. Um, and there is Karen Martell. She's got a good podcast as well. And she's also got a product line. Is it called? No, Hormone Solutions is the. If you look up Karen Martell, you'll find her website, and she's got really good products there. All right. She's got an estradiol cream, which actually, if I was in perimenopause, I'd be using that. Maybe even before the patch, I'd be playing with it a little bit, and you can figure out how much you're getting. And if anyone wants to chat with me and say, I'm thinking about doing this amount, and I'll say, yeah, try that. And this is how much you'll actually be getting. If you want some help with that, I'm more than happy to. So creams are often over the counter, but good quality. And Karen's, it's good. Annika Becca, she's out there too. She's got some good products as well. I would go to either those two women because I think they're good people. Okay. And I trust what they're doing. Um, so you can start taking things into your own hands. Now, that sleep portion, sometimes creams do work with women, and you can start there. And if it's not, I would go back to my OBGYN and say, I'm really having trouble sleeping. Can we just try, 100 milligrams of permetrium and just see how that works? Okay. And maybe you only take it, part-time during your cycle. That's another thing is I know your cycles are probably all over the place,
Yep.
but maybe even track that just the best that you can and just figure that out. So yeah, in perimenopause, I would say it's even more of a Wild West situation. Yeah. And you're probably going to need to have be part of a Facebook group, and not all of them are great, but there's a lot of good ones out there. And just listen to what other women have done because you do need the support, you do need the guidance, and it's hard to get it from your doctor. And I do not recommend going on birth control.
Yeah, that was an immediate full body no for me.
Yeah, and that's the other thing, your body told you no.
Oh, yeah.
And some doctors, if a woman is really bleeding a lot during perimenopause, and that's another sign that she's not getting enough progesterone, right? It's not opposing it enough. Sometimes they'll put them on a Mirena IUD, which also has progesterone in it. Yeah, I would again poo-poo that because it's got the progesterone in it, and I would request, can we try going to Prometrium, the oral, progesterone. Let's start at 100 milligrams. Let's see how we do. And then maybe on the last part of your cycle, you only take it maybe a week or 10 days. You play with it a little bit, see how you feel. And just let me just to put a little humor into it. Um, and once you feel like you've got it dialed in, right? Just like a toddler, and you think you know what they want to eat, and they eat it and they're happy for 3 or 4 weeks, and then all of a sudden they're throwing it at you. Your body will do the same thing. Okay. So it's a moving target.
Thank you for that. And,
Hmm.
this is the perfect time to talk about what you do and how you work with women. I mean, it's for the same reason, I coach women with autoimmune. It's like there's so much information.
Yeah.
How do we dial things into a lifestyle that we can actually manage? And how do we play around with things and figure out what works for us, right? Sometimes we need that guidance. So,
Hmm. Hmm.
working with somebody like you or somebody similar to you, I think is extremely beneficial. I'm all about assembling your own EMTs,
Hmm.
your excellence management team.
Your excellence management
Yeah,
team. I like that.
I had a friend who was on the podcast a long time ago who shared that term with me, and I've used it ever since because I love it so much.
Yeah.
And that team includes your Western medical
Yes.
system, right?
Yes,
But
it does.
the last time I saw my doctor a few weeks ago, he's like, he knows that I'm holistic. He knows that I know a lot and I do a lot of things for myself. And he says, us in the Western medical system, we have our lane. We know our lane well.
Hmm.
We know that the holistic alternative lane exists, but we aren't taught that.
Right.
So, you know, you may need to step outside of this box to get help with that thing. And I was like,
Yeah.
I really appreciate that you said that.
Yeah.
And I appreciate his expertise and what he
Yes.
knows. So, like,
Yes.
the point is, it all needs to work together, and we have to pick and choose who we're putting on our team.
Yes.
So, tell us how you work with women when someone comes to you.
Before I do that, I just want to say I just love the way you just framed that. And it is so important. And we will need 1 or 2 people to be on that excellent team for the rest of our lives. And they, just like with friends, they may come and go. We may, move to somebody else because they know this, and there's no way that all of us that any one person can know everything. There's just no way. We have our own bent and bias. We all do. And we might have something over here that's, we're not seeing. And that's where, we step out and maybe go to somebody else at a different time or at the same time. So yes, I feel like we always need to have a second opinion. when we're going through life. It's just how it is. So when a woman comes to me, obviously functional medicine, I'm looking at the whole person. So one of the things I require is very good lab work. I if I'm not seeing a holistic picture there to tie in the symptoms, to tie in everything else, and to put the dots together, then I feel like I'm floundering and I'm doing a disservice. So that's one thing. And doing, an hour and a half intake is what I do. And I try to educate my women, sometimes too much, and I apologize for that. I want them to know as much as they can to help themselves and, come up with a plan. And it depends on how savvy she is, where she is also. And it's taken me a while to learn this. Where she is as far as her bandwidth and what she can do right then. I mean, I might want to do a whole bunch of things, but her bandwidth isn't there. And there's something else too that, I used to have the philosophy that we need to get the diet, the lifestyle, the body movement, all of these things in place before we go to HRT because HRT is kind of the icing on the cake. Guess what? I have changed my tune to that because sometimes a woman comes in and she is so depleted that no matter how much she knows she should be doing A, B, C, and D, right? She doesn't have the energy, the brain power, the bandwidth to do it. So sometimes we need to get her on some estrogen and testosterone first before she can even pick herself up off the floor. So it's a very individualized way of approaching things. Of course, I always look at the digestive system. I always look at inflammatory markers to see, okay, is there something going on? And usually it's digestion or could be food or oral if we have, elevated CRP. I always like to look at ferritin as well. So, each woman's different. If I had my druthers, if I could in a perfect world, I would probably do a functional stool test on probably 80% of my women. I don't get to have that done. I mean, not everyone has the resources, and I try to honor that. And it's like, okay, if I do that, what is that going to change in the way I am treating, right? It does take the guesswork out. It's a really nice to have. But so much does come from the digestive system that if I could, I would do that.
Mhm.
But I do demand good serum work. And I can order for them. So it's inexpensive. So I like to say, maybe cut out your Starbucks. Maybe you don't get a pedicure and manicure and you save up your dollars for hiring somebody, and they don't have to be expensive. Um, and they really don't. And to help you navigate your way through different periods in your life. It's not going to be forever. There's going to be different periods where you need that extra pair of eyes to guide you. And you deserve it. You're worth it.
Exclamation point. You do
Mhm.
deserve it and you do worth it, and
Mhm.
you're worthy of it despite whatever else is going on in your life.
Mhm. Yeah.
Self-worth is something that I think runs deep in the autoimmune world, and we tend to put
Mm.
ourselves last in so many circumstances, especially as women. And
Mhm.
this
Mhm.
is something, and this is a point in your life, especially if you're in the perimenopause, menopause stage. Girl, you got to put yourself first now.
You do. I heard something yesterday. I was talking to a gal that I met. She has a podcast. I've loved all my women I have met on podcasts. It's just been so much fun. Um, and she talks to different organizations that, have women. So she's talking in the workplace, educating women about perimenopause and menopause, and also trying to educate the employers too, how they can make it better. and I didn't realize this because I work more with menopausal women than perimenopausal. I love working with my perimenopausal. You're just more difficult, but I still do. But she was saying that some women in perimenopause and early menopause, because they haven't gotten the support, they may have an autoimmune disease that I don't even know about, right? And along with the hormone issues. So they're just really struggling. And they have this idea that this may be their state for the rest of their lives. And I'm like, really? Women think that? I didn't know that.
Mm,
It's like, no, 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 no. No, and even in the autoimmune world, right? That is a difficult one to navigate, to stop, to step back. And this is the thing, this is kind of a curse and a blessing. It's like if you've had to deal with autoimmune disease, you know how to tune into your body. Whereas a woman going into perimenopause who's never had to deal with that, who's been able to skate through, she has no clue. So it's a curse and a gift. Yeah.
any last
Sorry.
thoughts? No, 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 no. Any last thoughts for our listeners? I mean, we
I
covered so much.
We have, and I think you kinda already said it, is that we have to really listen and tune to our bodies and be nice to ourselves and take a step back when we need to, and when we feel like our resilience has really kind of left, gone out the door, pay attention to that before you really get depleted. So, yeah, do the stopgap, get someone else in there. Raise your hand, let someone throw you a lifeline to get you back on track because often it doesn't take that much. And even just to get the encouragement and someone to give you a different point of view um, can help you just mentally and emotionally too.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Cindy, thank you so much. This has been such a valuable, important conversation. And I know it's going to help so many women.
I hope so. It was a pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much to Cindy for being here and for this conversation. There are so many things that we could take away from today's conversation, but the one thing that I really want you to remember is this: not every new symptom means that your autoimmune disease is getting worse. Sometimes your body is just changing, and understanding those changes is part of learning how to partner with it. For those of us who have lived with chronic illness, it can be really easy to interpret every ache, every sleepless night, every digestive change, or every drop in energy through the lens of fear. But awareness doesn't have to mean hypervigilance. We can pay attention, we can get curious, we can get creative, we can look at the bigger picture. And sometimes we might need to raise our hand and ask for help from someone who can help us see something that we might not be seeing on our own. I'd love to hear from you. Have you experienced changes through perimenopause or menopause that you initially thought were caused by your autoimmune condition? If you're watching on YouTube, go ahead and leave me a comment and let me know what changes you've noticed in your body and whether you found it difficult to tell the difference between hormone changes and autoimmune symptoms. And if today's conversation resonated with you, please take a moment to like and subscribe, leave us a review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, and share this episode with another woman who really needs to hear it. If you'd like to continue your own healing journey with me, I have a couple of resources for you. First, you can download my free daily Thrive Guide and Wellness Tracker. It's designed to help you slow down, become more aware of your own body, and build small, consistent daily habits that support your healing. And if you're ready to take a deeper look at what's keeping you stuck, you can apply for a free healing breakthrough session with me. Together, we'll explore what's getting in the way of your progress and identify a next step towards healing. You can find the links to both of those resources, as well as Cindy's website and resources, in the show notes. And just remember, your body changing doesn't mean your body is failing you. Sometimes it just means that it's asking you to listen to it in a different way. Every bridge needs a strong foundation that you can't see. My hope is that together we'll build one that's strong enough to carry you from fear to freedom. I'll see you on the next episode of the Health Bridge podcast.